Waterstones and Rise on the occasion of, well, it's not the occasion of publication of the Tale of the Body Thief, it's her publicity tour, which is a little late, but nonetheless she's here to promote the fourth part of the Vampire Chronicles, and I'm delighted that Robert Ewdall, who's a member of the Vampire Society, is going to read a passage, and then Anne Rice has agreed to take questions from the floor, and then she'll sign copies of their books. So I'd like to introduce, first of all, Robert Ewdall.
So what do you think it all means? I said to David. The dining room was exquisitely decorated and half empty. I sat there in the candlelight, in black dinner jacket and boiled shirt, with my arms folded before me, enjoying the fact that I needed only the pale violet tinted glasses now to hide my eyes. How well I could see the tapestry portieres and the dim garden beyond the windows. David was eating lustily. He'd been utterly delighted to come to Paris, loved his suite over the Place Vendôme, with its velvet carpets and gilded furnishings, and had spent all afternoon in Louvre. Well, you can see the theme, can't you? He replied. I'm not sure, I said. I do see common elements, of course, but these little stories are all different. How so? Well, in the Lovecraft piece, Asenath, this diabolical woman, switches bodies with her husband. She runs about the town using his male body, while he is stuck at home in her body, miserable and confused. I thought it was a hoot, actually. Just wonderfully clever. And of course, Asenath isn't Asenath, as I recall, but her father, who has switched bodies with her. And then it becomes all very Lovecraftian, with slimy half-human demons and such. That may be the irrelevant part. And the Egyptian story? Completely different. The mouldering dead, which still possess life, you know. Yes, but the plot. Well, the soul of the mummy manages to get possession of the body of the archaeologist, and he, the poor devil, is put in the rotted body of the mummy. Yes? Good Lord, I see what you're saying. And then the film vice versa. It's about the soul of a body and the soul of a man who switch bodies. All hell breaks loose until they are able to switch back. And the film, All of Me, it's about body switching as well. You're absolutely right. All four stories are about the same thing. Exactly. Christ, David, it's becoming clear. I don't know why I didn't see it, but this man is trying to get you to believe that he knows something about this body switching. He's trying to entice you with the suggestion that such a thing can be done. Good Lord, of course. That explains it. The way he moves, walks, runs. What? I sat there, stunned, re-envisioning the little beast before I answered, bringing up to mind every image of him from every conceivable angle which memory would allow. Yes, even in Venice, he'd had that obvious awkwardness about him. David, he can do it. Lestat, don't jump to such a mad conclusion. He may think that he can do it. He may want to try it. He may be living entirely in a world of delusions. No, that's his proposition, David. The proposition he says that I will want to hear. He can switch bodies with people. Lestat, you can't believe... David, that's what's wrong with him. I've been trying to figure it since I saw him on the beach in Miami. That isn't his body. That's why he can't use its musculature or its height. That's why he almost falls when he runs. He can't control those long, powerful legs. Good God, that man is in someone else's body. And the voice, David, I told you about his voice. It's not the voice of a young man. That explains it. And you know what I think? I think he chose that particular body because I'd notice it. And I'll tell you something else. He's already tried this switching trick with me before, and it's failed. I couldn't continue. I was too dazzled by the possibility. How do you mean tried? I described the peculiar sensations, the vibration and the constriction a sense that I was being forced quite literally out of my physical self. He didn't reply to what I'd said, but I could see the effect this had upon him. He sat motionless, his eyes narrow, his right hand half closed and resting idly beside his plate. It was an assault upon me, wasn't it? I tried to get out of my body. Maybe that he could get in. And of course he couldn't do it. But why would he risk mortally offending me with such an attempt? Has he mortally offended you? David asked. No, he's merely made me all the more curious. Powerfully curious. There you have your answer. I think he knows you too well. What? I heard what he said, but I couldn't reply just now. I drifted into remembering the sensations. That feeling was so strong. Oh, don't you see what he's doing? He's suggesting that he can switch with me. He's offering me that handsome young mortal frame. Yes, said David coldly. I think you're right. Why else would he stay in that body? I said. He's clearly very uncomfortable in it. He wants to switch. He's saying that he can switch. That's why he's taken this risk. He must know it would be easy for me to kill him, squash him like a little bug. I don't even like him. The manner, I mean. The body was excellent. No, that's it. He can do it, David. He knows how. Snap out of it. You can't put it to the test. What? Why not? You're telling me it can't be done? In all those archives, you have no records? David, I know he's done it. He just can't force me into it. But he's switched with another mortal. That I know. Lestat, when it happens, we call it possession. It's a psychic accident. The soul of a dead person takes over a living body. A spirit possessing a human being. It has to be persuaded to let go. Living people don't go around doing it deliberately and in concerted agreement. No, I don't think it is possible. I don't think we do have any such cases. He broke off clearly in doubt. You know you have such cases, I said. You must. Lestat, this is very dangerous. Too dangerous for any sort of trial. Look, if it can happen by accident, it can happen this way too. If a dead soul can do it, why not a living soul? I know what it means to travel outside my body. You know. You learned it in Brazil. You described it in fine detail. Many, many human beings know. Why, it was part of the ancient religions. It's not inconceivable that one could return to another body and hold on to it while the other soul struggles in pain to recapture it. What an awful thought. I explained again about the sensations and how powerful they had been. David, it's possible he stole that body. Oh, that's just lovely. Again, I was remembering the feeling of constriction, the terrific and strangely pleasurable feeling that I was being squeezed out of myself through the top of my head. How strong it had been. Why, if he could make me feel that, surely he could make a mortal man rise out of himself, especially if that mortal man did not have the slightest idea of what was being done. Calm yourself, Lestat, David said a little disgustedly. He laid his heavy fork upon the half-empty plate. Now, think this through. Perhaps such a switch could be achieved for a few minutes, but anchoring in the new body, remaining inside it, and functioning day in and day out. No, this would mean functioning when you are asleep as well as awake. You're talking about something entirely different and obviously dangerous. You can't experiment with this. What if it worked? That's the whole point. If it works, then I can get into that body. I paused. I could scarcely speak it, and then I did. I said, David, I can be a mortal man. It took my breath away. A moment of silence passed as we stared at each other. The look of vague dread in his eyes did nothing to still my excitement. I'd know how to use that body, I said in a half-whisper. I'd know how to use those muscles and those long legs. Oh yes, he chose that body because he knew I would consider it a possibility. a real possibility. Lestat, you can't pursue this. You're speaking of trading here, switching. You can't let this suspect individual have your body in return. The idea is monstrous. You inside that body is quite enough. I fell into stunned silence. Look, he said, trying to bring me back to him. Forgive me for sounding like the superior general of a religious order, but this is something you simply cannot do. First off, where did he get that body? What if he did, in fact, steal it? Surely no handsome young man cheerfully gave it over without so much as a qualm. This is a sinister being and must be recognized as such. You can't deliver to him a body as powerful as your own. I heard all this. I understood it, but I couldn't absorb it. Think of it, David, I said, knowing that I sounded mad and only barely coherent. David, I could be a mortal man. Would you kindly wake up and pay attention, please? This is not a matter of comical stories and Lovecraftian pieces of Gothic romance. He wiped his mouth with his napkin and crossly slowed down a swallow of wine, and then reached across the table and took hold of my wrist. I should have let him lift it and clasp it, but I didn't yield, and he realised within a second that he could no more move my wrist away from the table than he could move that of a statue made of granite. That's it, right there, he declared. You can't play with this. You can't take the risk that it will work, and this fiend, whoever he is, will have possession of your strength. I shook my head. I know what you're saying, but David, think of it. I have to talk to him. I have to find him and find out whether this can be done. He himself is unimportant. It's the process that's important. Can it be done? Lestat, I'm begging you, don't explore this any further. You're going to make another ghastly mistake. What do you mean? It was so hard to pay attention to what he was saying. Where was that wily fiend right now? I thought of his eyes. How beautiful they would be if he were not looking out of them. Yes, this was a fine body for this experiment. Wherever did he get it? I had to find out.
Thank you very much for reading that so well.
Are there any final book of the Vampire Chronicles?
No, it was the night I finished it, but it's...
What sort of ideas do you have for the next one?
Well, the thing that I keep going back to is an earlier part of the book where David and Lestat are talking about the possibility that David, as a young man, actually glimpsed God and the devil talking in a cafe in Paris. I can't get that out of my mind, and I want to move into a more metaphysical realm, really. The earlier Vampire Chronicles, I think, were very different. This book is sort of opens the door to a more philosophical, more linear kind of book, and that's where I want to go. But very intimate and very sensuous, I hope.
Thanks for all the pleasure you've given us over the years. Will we see Vamps again?
Soon, soon. I have to get back with those characters. Right now I'm still with the Mayfair family of the Witching Hour, and I haven't gone back and re-entered that world of the mummy, but I will. It's my plan. Yes?
I hear a lot of rumors about the movie Interview with the Vampire. How's that going?
Well, the project is really bogged down. That book has belonged to somebody in Hollywood now for 17 years, different people, Paramount, Lorimar, CBS, and at the moment Warner Brothers. And the contract is about to run out on it. In about 2.5 months it'll be mine again. And there's a desperate scramble to make a movie in these last couple of months, but I don't know that it's going to go well, and the communication between me and the people involved is very poor. So I think it's going to revert. I don't think that they can possibly mount a movie soon enough, and I'm not sure that they should try. So I think it's coming home, and it's in a contract with all the other books. So I'm rather eager to get it back, get control of it, and then think about what to do with it. Many, many people over the years have wanted to make it, but it's never been possible to get those people with the money people who owned it in the proper relationship. And it would be awfully nice to control the whole thing again. Perhaps for the first time. Is there anything else I can answer?
Do you have anyone in mind to play Lestat? Because there's been many musicians vying for the part.
Well, I tell you, physically, I wanted the actor Rutger Hauer, but he's too old now to play Lestat, really, I think. I think the best actor of our time is Jeremy Irons, and I'm afraid he's a little too old, too. But I think Jeremy Irons is such a great actor that if they could in any way do it, they should get Jeremy Irons. They're talking about Daniel Day-Lewis. And there's a possibility, you know, the newspaper told us several days ago that they've asked Neil Jordan to direct it. So we'll see. They don't have much time left, as I said, and they aren't saying the right words to me, but you never know. Might work out.
I heard that Elton John was making a musical of Into the Vampires. That's
Actually, Elton John wants to do a musical of Interview with the Vampire. He wants to do a real opera of Interview with the Vampire, and this is again funny. You'll have to tell me why. I don't really know.
Give you the hair transplant.
I don't think he wants to be in it himself. I think he wanted to
good.
write the music and the lyrics with Bernie Taupin, and it was a very serious project. He wanted to do it for about 10 years, and we had a meeting and talked about it, and it was killed at the executive level by David Geffen and Warner Brothers. They would not go ahead with it. And it's very involved, because if you give the rights to Elton John to make a musical, then you sort of tie up the whole thing for years. And I think David Geffen, who really controls it, was more interested in a film. But Elton John was very serious about it, and he wouldn't proceed without consulting with me first, and he was very, very nice. And he said he wanted it to be something that would be, you know, remembered, something that would leave behind a serious piece of music. So it didn't, I don't know, maybe next summer I'll call him if I get it back. I mean, I really don't know. That was one of the many, many things that just never happened in a long list. Is there any?
Can we look forward to a sequel to The Witching Hour?
Oh yes, the sequel to The Witching Hour is done. It's called Lasher, and it'll be out in the fall. I had a wonderful, wonderful time.
Is that out in America or out here?
No, it'll come out in October here and in America. Got very involved in that. I feel like I found in the Mayfair family this whole group of characters that I don't want to let go, and all kinds of different possibilities are still coming to me. And now that I'm in London, there are all kinds of ideas flashing into my head. Even a third novel about the Mayfairs.
Will you ever write any more erotica?
No, I feel I completed in the erotica what I wanted to do. That I accomplished writing the erotica I couldn't find in bookstores, and I wanted to exist. And I think it's pretty repetitive as it is. I'm very happy with it, very proud of it, but I don't plan to re-enter it. Also, the anonymity I enjoyed when I wrote it is gone, and I think it would be a little difficult to perhaps be as abandoned in writing it as I was. Part of having a pseudonym, A.N. Roquelaure, which means cloak, Roquelaure, was wrapping myself in a cloak to write it privately and to take it to extremes. But it gets more and more attention all the time, and as I said, I'm very happy with it, and I'm very pleased that it's been, you know, rediscovered or finally gaining a wider audience. I just don't have any more to say.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for all the pleasure you've given me over the years. And second, I'd like to ask you how much does Lestat speak for you? How much do you identify with him when you write from his point of view?
I identify with him almost totally. I mean, he's the he does all the things I can't do, but would like to do. And it's in a way, it's dreadful to write from his point of view, because it's sort of an agony to be damned and to have no hope of really ever being a good person. And I really feel that deeply when I write from his point of view. And at the same time, it's wonderful fun to be him, and to speak in his voice and just comment on daily life from his perspective. It's really great. And in a way, I could make every book a book with him and about him, and I resist that for obvious reasons, wanting to do different things. But he's like living there in my house and in my head, and, you know, very reluctantly letting me go to other projects. He's the only character that I've ever written about that I feel that way about, that he's lurking about, you know, and smirking and saying, and, you know. stop with the Mayfairs. Back.
Is that why you link kind of like the books together? Kind of like you've got Talaska and The Witching Hour, and you've got Ramses the Dams mentioned in the stat, and things like that. And there might be a hint that kind of like the characters from the Mayfairs are kind of like in the last book.
Well, I don't think I'll ever mix the characters.
No.
But I wanted the Talamasca to run through all of them, and I want to write more about the Talamasca, and I was delighted, secretly delighted by that possibility of creating this organization that could appear in all the different novels. But I think the texture of the Mummy book is far too different for those characters to ever be integrated with the others. Now, maybe the Mayfair and the vampires, at this time, that doesn't capture my imagination, but it might, and certainly it could happen. It's all consistent.
There was a passage in kind of the Body Thief where kind of like the house is redone by a certain expert in New Orleans. Kind of links back.
Yes, I hadn't thought of that, but interesting point. Is there anything else? Can I answer anything else? Shall we?
What's your favourite vampire novel?
You
and
mean
why?
That I have not written?
That you haven't written. That you have not written.
Oh, I have actually never read another complete vampire novel. I have read part of The Hunger, which I enjoyed, and I read some of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I enjoyed. But I've never found a vampire novel that swept me up or off my feet and kept me reading. This hasn't happened.
Unlike this one.
I just suggest you should try perhaps Rita Warrington, Taste of Blood Wine. It's
All
really
right,
good.
Rita Warrington.
It's really good. Yeah. You don't mind me.
Miss Warrington.
I'll definitely.
It's very good.
I'll definitely consider that and look for it.
I think if there are no more questions from the floor, we'll move on to the signing part of this evening. I'm sure that many of you will have questions to ask.